Memorial Stadium and the sea of red in the heartland of Lincoln, Nebraska. First down here for the offense. Smith takes the handoff. Picks up a useful 5-yard chunk out to the 30-yard line. The Nittany Lions want to pick up the tempo. They go to the ground. Pretty good job of running to get 2 there to the 32. Faced with a 3rd and short from their own 32 to keep this drive alive. They'll stick to the ground looking for the marker. They thought they could just run it on 3rd and short, but this defense was there to make the stop. Try to get it on the ground. Desperately wanted to keep. The offense lining up for a first down play. They'll go to the ground. At the 35, he's got room. And they'll pick up the first down and mark it at the 47. An explosive play to start the drive, and they'll try to keep the D on its heels. Goes to the option. Now the toss. Still running at the 40. He will step out of bounds, but not before the big pickup and a first down for this offense.
I bet that running back's eyes got so big when he gets that handoff going to the right and he sees the huge holes. Yes, please.
The defense just didn't flow quickly enough. All of the blockers had leverage on their men.
And that defensive line has to get off the ball a little bit better, get some penetration to stop that outside run.
They get him on the ground, but it's a first down. And the Nittany Lions will snap it on 1st and 10. Wide receiver coming across in motion. Trying to get the edge with a quick touch pass. Got enough space. And he's on his... Penn State sends the offense back onto the field. David, they'd love to do what they did last time and put this one in the end zone.
You ain't lying. They did a great job. The offense was clicking. Everything went well, Palmer. They executed and got the touchdown.
And they really were in a nice rhythm as well. And I'd love to see that here on the next drive, too. Just keep doing what you're doing. Everything seems to be working, and you seem to have this defense on their heels.
Touch pass on the run. They can rely on this guy to pick up solid yardage when they need it, and he's out to the 43. Offense gets set for 2nd down. Really important for a ranked team going into a hostile environment like this one, not to give the underdog reason to believe.
Yes, reason to believe, and don't give the fans reason to get jacked up and excited. Come out early, be in a business mode mindset.
You got to start fast. You got to have a sense of urgency. You cannot come sleepwalking into an environment like this, because if you do and you make some mistakes, this crowd will pounce on you and seize momentum.
They want to run this quarterback.
You know, we talk about quarterbacks having to make quick decisions, and I think you saw it on that play. Nobody open downfield, and he just decided to take off.
And here comes the offense on 2nd down. On the option. Now the pitch. He steps out of bounds, but it will be enough for a first down. And the Nittany Lions took those plain headgears, got their blocks, and picked up the first down.
Yeah, and those headgears are a staple, aren't they, of college football? I know exactly what you're talking about, those beautiful helmets. They don't change very much, very traditional. Penn State keeps it simple. Being traditional, running the football.
The Nittany Lions want to crank the tempo. Quick touch pass to the receiver. And the defense stops him just short of the first down. Maybe needed a few more chain links to move the sticks.
Well, in that down and distance, you're probably expecting him to throw it way down the field to get the first. Instead, they go push pass, and they did catch the defense off guard. And even though that was a big explosive play, David, they still didn't have enough yards to get it.
Well, and catch me off guard is relative. That's what you would say, the offensive player. I would say, listen, we're playing a little bit deeper because we're not going to give up the first down. We react to the short stuff, and obviously that's a quick, easy pass from the offense. Rally up, make the play, live to fight another down.
Quick strike complete. That throw and catch gets them down to the 6, and the defense is running out of answers. Clock's running, and they'll try to get to the line warp speed for second down. And he runs it in for the score. Touchdown! Offense set on first down. He's going to pass. Lets it fly. And it was worth going for a chunk play, but the long pass is incomplete.
That's an example of the offensive coordinator trying to be aggressive and trying to take a shot. Now, the offense isn't able to click on that play, but moving ahead in the second half, it's important they continue to dial up these big plays. You want to stay aggressive, and you want to keep testing the second.
The run to the right. Just a solid stop by this sophomore.
I think a big part of this isn't necessarily scoring a touchdown on that play, but you're just trying to get your offensive line in the rhythm of the game. Let those big fellas get lathered out.
They'll give it to the back. He's run out of bounds, but a big play on that one, and it'll be a first down. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. They'll try the run. At the 35, he's loose. Ripping through the defense and getting it all the way down to the 24-yard line.
I'll tell you, the defense is going to have to do a much better job containing these outside run plays. They better be able to funnel the football back to the middle of the field, because this guy with his speed can kill you like he did on that outside run play there to the left.
That's the end of the second quarter. That means it's time to join Kevin in our halftime update.
Guys, time for everyone to take a deep breath and digest what we just saw in Lincoln.
And the Huskers will kick it off to start the second half. Looking for an alley from inside his own 10. Just never had a chance to shake.
Down at the 24. And the Penn State offense will take
the Nittany Lions going back to work on offense now. If it's working, why change it? And that running game was working in the first half. I imagine we'll see a lot more of it here in the third quarter.
And you just know the offensive line was telling their coordinator, put this on us. Let us continue to go out there, push these guys around. We can put this game on our back and end this thing by running the ball.
And this is a manhood question for this defense. Like, as a defensive lineman, and you're pounding the rock, like, I got to physically rise to this challenge. This defense has to play more inspired and more physical in the second half.
They'll pick up 4, 2nd and 6 coming.
He's brought down.
Kept it on the ground on first down, now back to the line. Wide out in motion. The give to the back. And the defense snows him under after a very short game. As they come to the line on 3rd and short from the 43, I wonder if they already know they'll go for it if they don't make it here. The give is to Smith. They tried to go smash mouth on 3rd and short, and it did not work against this defense.
And just a great job by the defense being stout. All right, that's your job. Be stout up front, stuff in the run play, make them get in more passing situations, but do not let them run the football. That's 101. Stop the run first.
Quarterback flips it ahead quickly to the receiver. Across the 45. Oh, look out, there he goes! Not much of a fourth down gamble when it's that much of a sure thing. An easy conversion for this offense. After that huge gain, now a chance to cash it in from just outside the 5. Fast motion from the offense. Quarterback quick pass to the receiver. Touchdown, Nittany Lions! The offense set for a first down play. Quarterback checking off. Looking to throw, it's Tompkins. The receiver was doubled and they picked it off. And they'll close in on him after. Here comes the offense on first down. Trying to start the drive with a pass. Looking down the middle. And that ball is picked off. Going the other way, and he's got room. He's at the 10. And a big return. Looking for a productive play on first down. Wasting no time throwing on this drive. Fires to the big fella. That one could really put this drive into high gear as they have a first down at the 37.
Well, I know the tight end did some good things after the catch, but got to give the quarterback credit, too, for the location of the throw. Because he put it out in front of his big man, he was able to make the catch and accelerate, creating some distance there between him and the defense.
They stop him just a link or two short of the first, and man, what they can do on second down here. Less than a yard to go to pick up the first down. Here's the handoff. Dragged down at the 43, but it's a pickup of 10 on that one.
Well, on offense, you have got to love the way your offensive line is playing in this game. They're getting tremendous movement up front. They're climbing into second level and really giving these backs and ball carriers a lot of room to run all game long.
With the catch, it's Smith. Open space at the 25. And this offense is feeling it as they rip off a big chunk of yardage, and they've got it on the 22. The Nittany Lions have it with a 1st and 10. On the option. He'll toss it. They make the stop after a pickup of 3 just inside the red zone at the 19. Got 3 on first down and 2nd and 7. Back to pass, it's Tompkins. He's got his man. Got some room, headed to the goal line. He stopped just short of the goal line at the 1. An explosive play has him set up. And this offense can just about taste taking the lead in the 4th quarter, but you do want to be careful not to score too quickly. Nice, solid form tackle from this sophomore.
No gain on the play. It's now 2nd and goal.
Can the defense stop them again on 2nd and goal? This is a designed run. Touchdown! Penn State sends the offense back onto the field. And now, Jesse, the art here is to find the balance between milking the clock and trying to get another score.
I think if you're the coaching staff, too, you like to see your team play its best in the 4th quarter, right? Defense just did their job, so offense now, David, has to go out and handle their business.
Yeah, you got the momentum. Because of the defense, they've given you some momentum. They've given you a great opportunity to take hold of this game and really put a stamp on it.
The Nittany Lions will try to run out the clock in the final minute. He lofts it high and deep down the left side. And it's caught inside the 30. Quick timeout called by the defense, stopping the clock to save as much time as possible for their offense. They dialed up the perfect call, splendid execution. Now they've got it, threatening 1st and 10 from the 27. Smith takes the handoff. He's knocked down in the backfield. He'll lose a couple. Timeout called there by the defense, desperate to get the ball back and save as much time as possible. Might as well keep pounding that rock at this point in the game, even though it's 2nd and 12. Quarterback touch pass on the jet sweep. Not a whole lot of progress made there on the short run. Offense calls a timeout here. Critically important to make sure they have the right play call and everyone on the same page here. Ball spotted at the 27. They're facing a 3rd and long to try to keep their hopes of a touchdown alive. Dropping back, it's Tompkins. Getting some heat. That pass is well off target. He got hit as he was trying to throw, and they can't convert on 3rd down. So on 4th down, here comes the field goal kicker in a huge spot. Right down the boulevard, it's good. And we're at the midway point of the season, and after the showing they delivered today, this team is firing on all cylinders through Week 7.
We've been talking a lot about this team, but you want to be remembered in the month of November. The most important part and the meat of this schedule now is coming up. If you play well throughout the second half of the year, we're talking college football playoff potentially.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere, right? And I like that they started strong, made it to Week 7 now. Yes, the rivalries are coming up, and more important games are coming up, but you did what you needed to do to start the season. Now just keep that mindset and keep grinding.
So that's going to do it for us. For Jesse Palmer, David Pollack, I'm Reese Davis saying so long. This has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.